Hey guys, so we just had another mass shooting here in Florida, and this is kind of becoming the new norm. And of course, everybody is, kind of jumping on the bandwagon and politicizing what's going on. I found myself in a couple of arguments, debates, whatever you want to call it here recently. Different people with different views on how to deal with the situation. Ultimately, it's going to be what it's going to be. Until people start taking personal responsibility for their own well-being, we're going to continue to have these types of things. The idea that we're going to create gun-free zones and then people who are intent on murdering other people are somehow going to see a sign and then stop. I don't know. Whoever thought that through wasn't thinking that through very well. But the fact of the matter is that signs never stopped anybody. We see that signs don't stop people from speeding. They don't stop people from shooting other people. They don't stop people. They basically only serve as a potential warning for actual law-abiding people that, hey, this is strongly frowned upon for you to exceed the speed limit in this area. But certain things don't really need to be said. Not going into a school and shooting up kids, it's kind of one of those things that pretty much most of us know is considered to be frowned upon by society. But ultimately what it boils down to is I don't want to say anything about the parents or the kids or anything like that, and I hope it's not taken that way, that this is something disparaging to them. But I do feel like this is something that people need to start taking personal responsibility for their own well-being. We see this with concealed carry, where more and more individuals are actually starting to conceal carry. The right to self-defense is a God-given right. It's not something that we are afforded by the Constitution. It is something that is to be protected and upheld by the Constitution, but it is not given to us by our Constitution. Therefore, it's not the government that gives you the right to be able to defend yourself. It's your Creator. That's why it starts off with, we are endowed by our Creator certain unalienable rights. But the point being is that these types of things are basically becoming the new norm. Parents, you're putting your kids in a public school, and if that's what you choose to do, your job is to prepare them for such an encounter. We spend 18 years with our kids preparing them for life, preparing them with education, preparing them with morality, with religion, with all of these different things. As parents, we spend a great deal of time focusing on our kids and what we feel is going to be important in their life. But then all of a sudden we get to the area of self-defense and self-preservation, and all of a sudden it's like, no, that's not my job, that's the government's job. And we've all heard the analogy before that when danger is imminent, the cops are minutes away. That doesn't really help me right now. So I do hope that more and more parents begin spending time with their kids, not just in the training aspect. I mean, from the time my kids were 5 years old, they started in martial arts. It's not just about training. It's not about, teaching your kids how to disarm somebody or anything like that. The martial arts is it's an avenue by which you teach your kids to not be victims. It starts off by them training in martial arts, and they learn to not be victims of, typical bullying type situations that maybe kids run into. But it also is a mentality and a mindset that has to be fostered among kids, even beyond that. We're living in an age where weapons are reality. I mean, we really always have here in the US, but they're becoming more and more a reality as social boundaries are gradually removed, and people no longer have that kind of restraint that certain targets are off limits. And as a result of that, what we end up with is with people that have no moral qualms against going into a school or shooting the place up, or going into a place of worship and shooting the place up and things like this. And a lot of the attacks are actually becoming more organized. Each shooter basically learns from the last shooter, and the damages are far, far worse. However, as each one of the shooters learns from the last shooter, you would think that we would be learning from the last shooting as well, and that we would be taking steps to make sure that our kids are starting to adopt a mentality that that they're not going to be victims. So the very idea of run, hide, fight necessitates the fact that you run when you can, and when you can no longer run, then you hide, and when you can no longer hide and the threat is at the door, then you fight. I've taught this class, numerous times, and inevitably what ends up happening is most people want to focus on the run and the hide, and when it comes to the fight portion, they don't really want to take it too much further. But we do need to kind of keep in mind that that the fight is a reality, and it has less to do with the training, like some special ninja skills that you have, and more to do with the mindset that says, I'm not going to be a victim, so I'm going to put myself in close enough proximity to where when this individual closes in on me, I'm going to close that distance and grab control of that weapon. And that's a difficult thing to do, it really is, but it's even more difficult in this day and age because well, I mean, we live in a pseudo alpha age, where everybody sees themselves as an alpha male, but they're not. I start off each one of my classes, each one of the combatives classes, with a congratulatory statement to each one of the initiates that comes in, and it just starts off with congratulations for not being a pussy. And that's just a reality of it, because most people want to sit there and shop around on YouTube. They want to put on that pseudo alpha t-shirt that says that, I'm SWAT Ninja Ranger 6 Recon, but not actually get in there and mix it up with people, not actually learn the lessons and go through all of that. So I really do think that, parents, start off putting your kids in martial arts. Start off training your kids that it's their own responsibility to be responsible for their safety. That doesn't mean that you're going to take a 6-year-old kindergartner and have him, tackle a 300-pound Navy SEAL or something like this. What it means is that your kid is adopting a mentality that they're not just going to cower under a desk. If it means that they're going to defy authority and go out a window, if it means that they're going to stand strong and stand firm against a potential bully, that they have the proper mindset and encouragement and support from their parents to be able to do so. This is how you don't foster victims. This is how you train up a group of individuals, or you train up our youth such that that they don't become just passive targets in an active shooting environment. They don't basically become a group of kids who are filming their own death on Instagram or Facebook because it's the only response that they know to such actions is to pull out their phones and film it, as opposed to bum rushing the door. Now again, I understand that a lot of people are probably going to take personal offense to this. It hits too close to home. Look, it is what it is. I'm just stating the facts. But the fact of the matter is, the shooter in this particular case was a 19-year-old kid and a former student. There's no reason whatsoever why other students of the same age and height and size and many larger could not have pushed in had they have been trained with a proper mindset that basically says, if a threat presents itself, I'm going to move towards the threat as opposed to moving away. And I know this sounds countercultural, but it really is something that is isolated to just here in the West, because as I go overseas, you don't see that. You see in places where people are not dependent on the local government for their well-being, you see them taking a more proactive stance towards their well-being, and they don't have active shootings to the degree that we do, because we have basically become just a nation of soft targets. So I do hope that that parents will kind of heed this and take personal responsibility for their kids' well-being as a full scope responsibility, not just the educational portion, the health aspect, the moral and religious, you know, upbringing, but also their safety and self-preservation, and let them know that it is okay to stand up for yourself, and it is okay to defy authority when and if the situation arises and your life is in imminent danger. So anyway, hope that's received in the spirit that it was intended. So you guys train hard.